Hi, I'm Richard Friedman, and welcome to my video cartoon for June 12th, 2025. Here we have President Trump here at the Fort Bragg. And what I've done here is I took an excerpt from his speech there, and there you had all the soldiers, the troops there, and this is amid him sending troops and the Marines into Los Angeles, despite the governor's objection to that and saying that they could handle it themselves with all their local and state force police. But Trump did. It's very a lot of questions about how he did that, but I don't want to go there. You hear that on TV all the time. What I've done here is taken an excerpt from his speech, and I've kind of just welded it to a flashback I did a while ago called the Trump Star-Spangled Banner, because President Trump alluded to the Star-Spangled Banner, because here he's basically, in this speech, he's laying the justification for sending in the National Guard, followed by a backup Marines, and again against Governor Gavin Newsom's, in defiance of Governor Gavin Newsom. So I don't want to get into a legal thing about it. You hear, as I said, you hear enough about that. But what I'm trying to bring out the point here is that President Trump is pouring the concrete here into the foundation of his justification for doing that in this speech, which is highly, there's no question about it. From anybody's perspective, it was definitely political. A lot of political stuff going back to the election of 2020, that it was rigged and this and that. And, there's concerns about he's politicizing the troops there with this, and the troops were fielded for the ones who might have political objections. They told them, you can just opt out if you feel uncomfortable about this. And also, they didn't want any heavy National Guardsmen around, and they all had to be like a certain weight. I think maybe they put them on a scale and see if they didn't weigh too much weight. And took a measurement of their waistline. That's what I heard. I read reportedly. I didn't say they did that, but they reportedly didn't want any heavy people there who looked unfit, and who people who would have sour pusses when on their faces when President Trump started expounding on things like January 6th and former President Biden, and all these things that he got into in the context of this celebration here, amid the president. This is from troops. They're concerned about politicization of the military, following a speech at Fort Bragg to troops to mark the 250th anniversary of the Army. Okay, given this flashback sparked by Trump, this flashback that I'm doing now was really sparked by President Trump himself, because he invoked the Star-Spangled Banner, which was written by Lieutenant Francis Scott Key when during the War of 1812, when the British invaded America, trying to reconquer us, basically. And President Trump is basically, he's trying to say we're being reconquered again by these undocumented immigrants, and that's the implication. That's the scenario that he's making here, and I see that. And anybody would see that. You don't have to be any kind of a genius to see that. By Trump invoking the British invasion during the War of 1812 and alluding to Lieutenant Francis Scott Key, who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner from Baltimore Harbor, he wrote this in response to Old Glory, that's the American flag, flying high at Fort McHenry after it was attacked, and they fought off a British attack, and they were very much outnumbered. They were very much outnumbered, and they still managed to fight off the British attack at Fort Henry, and the flag was still flying in the air. And then he wrote, "Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly..." So he wrote that song right there in the harbor, in Baltimore Harbor. Okay, so President Trump goes on to say, when the British tried to reconquer and here's the cartoon here, and here's President Trump with his troops at Fort Bragg here. You see, and they're all behind him here. There. Okay, there he is. There he is. And it says here, "This we'll defend." The American flag, which goes back to Old Glory. Again, what he's saying here about the American flag waving, as Francis Scott Key wrote this song. So it all kind of connects to his theme in his presentation at Fort Bragg to these troops. So that's the essence there. So when the British tried to reconquer our young nation in 1812, this is President Trump here. So I'm going to go ahead and you can read it, and I'll read it to you at the same time. When the British tried to reconquer our young nation in 1812, Americans at Fort McHenry fought off a British invasion fleet, 5,000 strong. They say it was unstoppable. Lieutenant Francis Scott Key watched from Baltimore Harbor as the Army kept Old Glory, the American flag, flying high. Deeply inspired, he wrote a poem as tribute to Army courage and American pride, called the Star-Spangled Banner. And there it was. You see? So this is how it went at Fort Bragg. This is a segment of President Trump's address during the part where he was alluding to Old Glory flying after a British attack, and they tried to reconquer our nation. And he's saying, basically, in my opinion, he's using that to justify sending in the troops and creating this idea that we're doing the right thing to protect our country from this invading force that he postulates. You see, that's threatening our country and the foundations of our democracy. That's how he sees it, and that's how he's making his case for what he's doing at Fort Bragg here to the nation. So he knew it was going to be broadcasted to the nation, and there he is. And there he is with the troops who are more or less been screened to be favorable, not necessarily favorable, but not to be against his politics. So they asked anybody who's not in favor of this political event, the political of President Trump's ideas and stuff. If you feel uncomfortable, stay home or go speak to your commanding officer, and we'll get you out of being there. We'll put somebody else in who's more receptive to that kind of political thinking. And that's what they did do here. So there we are. Here they are, the troops behind him. You see? And there's the American flag. And it says here, this we'll defend. We'll defend the American flag the way it was defended again at Fort McHenry. And followed by our national anthem now, the Star-Spangled Banner by Francis Scott Key. Okay, and there it is. There, you could read that for a minute or two that I wrote there. I just read it to you. There, that was his speech there. Part of it, a very small part of it, about maybe 1/30th of it, But I thought that's the part that I seized on to do this cartoon with the Star-Spangled Banner as a flashback from April 2024 that I wrote the Trump Star-Spangled Banner. Now here we go with this cartoon from back then, and here we go. Now Trump gave this man the Trump star, his Trump Star-Spangled Banner. You see, because evidently the first when they sang the Star-Spangled Banner version that they sang wasn't sufficient to convince this man to accept the pardon. Okay, here's what I'm going to say. I don't want to waste time with that. Now, the thing is that this is a man who, this is back then when I wrote that there was a man who was convicted in January 6th, and he didn't take his pardon. President Trump had said that he was running for office. He said he would pardon all these people, which he did do, but there is one man who refused to pardon. He felt he was guilty, and so as President Trump is saying to him that he's going to have to listen to his Star-Spangled Star-Spangled Banner, Star-Spangled Trump every day until he accepts his pardon. And that was the thrust of this cartoon back then. You see, there he is. He's staying in jail on his own decision to stay in jail. And President Trump is saying, well, you're going to stay in jail. You're going to listen to the Star-Spangled Trump every single day. Guard, this man must be rehabilitated. Must be rehabilitated and accept he was innocent. You see? Okay, this man must be, there he is, you see? There he is. In the jail, there. This was from April 2024. That this man must be rehabilitated to the point he can accept his pardon. See? And I want him singing this every day. This song here. And he calls it the Star-Spangled Trump. Okay, I called it, and I gave him the name of that song. Okay? See, every day, Star-Spangled Trump, until he accepts my pardon. Now, order him to sing. Okay, this is first. He's going to do this every day. So he's ordering him, God. All right. That our Trump election victory without electors would persevere gave proof to President Trump that we still had our people there. And the Trump Star-Spangled Banner in victory doth wave over the land of the free tax breaks to the rich that Trump gave, and over the America that Trump saved. And here we go. And here it is. Okay, we'll try it again, folks. Get a little better timing there. So this is the prisoner singing the song, and I'm going to sing it again here. Oh, say, can you see by our people's election fight what so proudly we ployed our flag, gallantly screaming, whose broad swipes with our pointed poles made our message so clear that our Trump election victory without our electors would persevere, gave proof to President Trump that we still had people there. And the Trump Star-Spangled Banner in victory doth wave. And over the land of the free tax breaks to the rich Trump gave. And all the America that Trump saved. Okay, I'll try to work this out from a different perspective now. Okay, I'm going to play the song again, and here you have and there you have the words. So I'm going to do it one more time to give you the perspective. Imagine this is a prisoner singing the song. He's going to be singing the song every day by the order of the guard there in prison until he accepts his pardon. And here he goes again now. Here's a word. Through the riot that our Trump knew we were there. All right, folks.
Okay, folks.
So, here I go. That's me. All right.
My brief
Okay.
song.
I'm going to get off of this now, right now, off of this.
Star-Spangled Banner.
Okay. And I want to thank you very much.
God bless you. God bless America. And I pray for all those people.
Okay. As I always say, thank you for watching my video. God bless you. And I'll see you next time. Take care, folks. Stay well. Hang in there. Bye.